Chapter 13. Pricing Concepts for Establishing Value. These questions are the learning objectives guiding the chapter and will be explored in more detail in the following slides. Why should firms pay more attention to setting prices? What is the relationship between price and quantity sold? Why is it important to know a product's break-even point? Who wins in a price war? How has the Internet changed the way some people use price to make purchasing decisions? How can firms avoid legal and ethical problems when setting or changing their prices? Why would you pay the prices you thought of? It really comes down to the benefits and value you place on your jeans. Some people see them as the pants they wear every day, their most important item, and will therefore pay more. Others won't understand paying high prices for jeans since they really are nothing special. Price is the overall sacrifice a consumer is willing to make to acquire a specific product or service. This sacrifice usually includes the money that must be paid to the seller to acquire the item, but it also may involve other sacrifices, like the value of the time necessary to acquire the product or service. Consumers recognize price as a signal. If a marketer sets a price too high or too low, the wrong message gets sent to the market. A price set too low may signal low quality, poor performance, or other negative attributes about the product or service. A great but overpriced product can be judged as low in value and may not sell as well as an inferior but well-priced item. Research has consistently shown that consumers usually rank price as one of the most important factors in their purchase decisions. Price is the only element in the marketing mix that does not generate costs, but instead generates revenue. Successful pricing strategies are built through the 5 critical components shown in this slide. Each firm has a specific orientation in the marketplace that dominates its pricing strategy. Profit-oriented firms do not use value as a consideration, but rather focus on generating a set level of profit from each sale. Even though all company methods and objectives may ultimately be oriented toward making a profit, firms implement profit orientation specifically by focusing on target profit pricing, maximizing profits, or target return pricing. Firms using a sales orientation to set prices believe that increasing sales will help the firm more than will increasing profits. Some firms may be more concerned about their overall market share than about dollar sales because they believe that market share better reflects their success relative to the market conditions than to sales alone. Adopting a market share objective does not always imply setting low prices. Rarely is the lowest price offering the dominant brand in a given market. When firms undertake a competitor orientation, they strategize according to the premise that they should measure themselves primarily against their competition. Some firms focus on competitive parity, which means they set prices that are similar to those of their major competitors. Status quo pricing changes prices only to meet those of competition. Value is not part of this pricing strategy. A customer orientation explicitly invokes the concept of value. Sometimes a firm may attempt to increase value by focusing on customer satisfaction and setting prices to match customer expectations. Consumers have an expectation of a rental car costing a lot of money. They don't realize they can rent the car for under $10 an hour. Because Zipcar is a new product, they need to set customers' expectations. To help consumers relate to the price, they compare it to a purchase very familiar to the consumer. The second C of the 5 C's of pricing is the most important in that it captures the essence of marketing, the customers. A demand curve shows how many units of a product or service customer will demand during a specific period of time at different prices. As this slide illustrates, the common downward sloping demand curve in which, as price increases, demand for the product or service decreases. Knowing the demand curve for a product or service enables a firm to examine different prices in terms of the resulting demand and relative to its overall objective. Not all products or services follow the downward sloping demand curve for all levels of price. Consider prestige products or services, which consumers purchase for their status rather than their functionality. Prestige product or services have upward sloping curves. Price elasticity of demand measures how changes in a price affect the quantity of the product demanded. In general, the market for a product or service is price sensitive or elastic when a 1% decrease in price produces more than a 1% increase in the quantity sold. The market for a product is generally viewed as price insensitive or inelastic when a 1% decrease in price results in less than a 1% increase in the quantity sold. Consumers are generally more sensitive to price increases than to price decreases. Specifically, price elasticity is the ratio of the percentage change in quantity demanded to the percentage change in price, as illustrated in this slide. In elastic markets, depending on the level of elasticity, a price increase can increase revenues, but if the increase drives consumers out of the market, demand falls and a loss of revenue may result. In contrast, in inelastic markets, a price increase almost always increases revenues because the relationship between price and demand is weak. Pharmaceuticals provide a good example. Even if the price of a cancer drug increases, consumers still demand it, so the firm generates more revenue. As people's income increases, they tend to shift their demand from lower-priced products to higher-priced alternatives. When income drops, consumers turn to less expensive alternatives or purchase less. This income effect refers to the change in quantity of a product demanded by consumers due to a change in their income. The substitution effect refers to consumers' ability to substitute other products for the focal brand. Cross-price elasticity is the percentage change of product A demanded compared with the percentage change in product B. Consider Pete. He normally uses Old Spice sport deodorant, but at the store he notices that Old Spice is more expensive. As a college student on a budget, he prefers a less expensive substitute deodorant because it demands less of his total income. Kendra, a self-supporting college student, got a great deal on a new printer, only to learn that it requires special ink cartridges that cost more than the printer. Just like Kendra, many people buy products without considering the price of necessary peripherals. Kendra is caught in a cross-elasticity trap because her demand for one product generated demand for the other. Variable costs are those costs, primarily labor and materials, that vary with production volume. Fixed costs are those costs that remain essentially at the same level, regardless of any changes in the volume of production. The total cost is simply the sum of the variable and fixed costs. A useful technique that enables managers to examine the relationships among cost, price, revenue, and profit over different levels of production and sales is called the break-even analysis. This slide presents various cost and revenue information in a graphic format. The graph contains three curves: fixed costs, and total revenue. This slide presents the formula used to calculate the total variable cost, and total revenue. To determine the break-even point in units mathematically, there is one additional variable, the contribution per unit. The contribution per unit is the price less the variable cost per unit. There are three levels of competition: oligopolistic, monopolistic, and pure. Each has its own set of pricing challenges and opportunities. Channel members, manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers can have different perspectives when it comes to pricing strategies. Unless channel members carefully communicate their pricing goals and select channel partners that agree with them, conflict will surely arise. Channels can be very difficult to manage, and distribution outside normal channels does occur. A gray market, for example, employs irregular but not necessarily illegal methods. Generally, it legally circumvents authorized channels of distribution to sell goods at prices lower than those intended by the manufacturer. Now check yourself. 1. What are the 5 C's of pricing? Company objectives, customers, costs, competition, channel members. 2. Identify the 4 types of company objectives: profit orientation, sales oriented, customer oriented, competitor oriented. 3. What is the difference between elastic versus inelastic demand? In general, the market for a product or service is price sensitive or elastic when the price elasticity is less than -1. That is, when a 1% decrease in price produces more than a 1% increase in the quantity sold. In an elastic scenario, relatively small changes in price will generate fairly large changes in the quantity demanded. The market for a product is generally viewed as price insensitive or inelastic when its price elasticity is greater than -1. That is, when a 1% decrease in price results in less than a 1% increase in quantity sold. Generally, if a firm must raise prices, it is helpful to do so with inelastic products or services because in such a market, fewer customers will stop buying or reduce their purchases. 4. How does one calculate the break-even point in units? Divide the fixed costs by the contribution per unit, price per unit minus variable cost per unit. The shift among consumers to acquiring more and more products, services, and information online has made them more price-sensitive and opened new categories of products to those who could not access them previously. The growth of online auctions offers good deals, although many times items can fetch a premium price because bidders tend to get caught up in the bidding process. 2 interrelated trends that have emerged to impact pricing decisions are the increase in consumers' disposable income and status consciousness. Some consumers appear willing to spend money for products that can convey status in some way. A countervailing trend finds customers attempting to shop cheap. This cross-shopping is the pattern of buying both premium and low-priced merchandise, or patronizing both status-oriented retailers and price-oriented retailers. In addition, the economic environment at local, regional, national, and global levels influences pricing. Now check yourself. 1. How have the Internet and economic factors affected the way people react to prices? Because it is so easy to get information on the Internet, people generally have become more aware of and sensitive to price. This trend has forced both manufacturers and retailers to become more price competitive. Some consumers even know more about the relative value of different products than the firms from which they are buying. Online auctions like eBay not only provide consumers with the relative value of millions of products, but also enhance their value by establishing a global market for products that would have been geographically limited in the past. Ask students to give examples of legal and ethical pricing situations they have encountered. Break-even analysis enables managers to examine the relationships among cost, price, revenue, and profit over different levels of production and sales. Cross-price elasticity is the percentage change in the quantity of product A demanded compared with the percentage change in price in product B. Fixed costs are those costs that remain essentially at the same level, regardless of any changes in the volume of production. Income effect is the change in the quantity of a product demanded by consumers due to a change in their income. The maximizing profit strategy assumes that if a firm can accurately specify a mathematical model that captures all the factors required to explain and predict sales and profits, it should be able to identify the price at which its profits are maximized. Price is the overall sacrifice a consumer is willing to make to acquire a specific product or service. The substitution effect refers to consumers' ability to substitute other products for the focal brand. Target profit pricing is implemented by firms to meet a targeted profit objective. The firms use price to stimulate a certain level of sales at a certain profit per unit. Target return pricing occurs when firms employ pricing strategies designed to produce a specific return on their investment, usually expressed as a percentage of sales. The total cost is the sum of the variable and fixed costs. Variable costs are the costs that vary with production value.